Thank you, Mark Potashnik. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, Warren Redlick. Merch at elonbits.com, Tesla and Air t-shirt, Tesla stainless steel water bottle. Hey, thanks so much for watching. We're going to talk Tesla right now. I'm going to be doing a second live stream in about an hour on the Daily Live. There's a link in the top of the chat. I didn't put a link in the video description yet, but I'll get it over there soon. It's warrenredlick.locals.com, but a live stream there that will be talking about some political topic, geopolitics related to some kind of conflict that's happening somewhere in the world that you can't imagine where, and I can't say because we're on YouTube, which is a censorship platform, which is why I do those videos on another platform. So I want to start with some positive news. Giga Shanghai, near Giga Shanghai, CATL has completed the structure of a plant to produce 80 gigawatt hours of batteries. It's near Giga Shanghai. It's likely that a lot of these batteries will go into Tesla vehicles. I don't think they're all committed to Tesla vehicles, but Tesla is probably one of the biggest sources of demand. BYD is the large EV maker in China. They make their own batteries. So there are other companies that will probably be buying these batteries. But I think Kansu actually has this wrong, saying that it's 800,000 vehicles here. 80 gigawatt hours. If a typical battery pack was 100 gigawatt hours, that would be 800,000 vehicles a year. But since the typical battery pack in China might be 60 gigawatt hours, this is closer to 1.5 million vehicles each. That's a pretty big deal. And don't forget that the lithium iron phosphate batteries that CATL typically produces often go into megapacks. Megapack is a better Megapack and Powerwall might be better for lithium iron phosphate batteries for a variety of reasons, particularly high cycle life and low energy density. So I think there's a really good chance that some of these batteries will work their way into Megapack. Tesla has a new mega factory to make Megapacks in Shanghai. So that's just one piece of positive news. I think I have another piece of positive news here. Tesla is offering wraps, factory wraps. So you can, a lot of people that I know buy a Tesla and then they put a wrap on their vehicle. They typically spend thousands of dollars to give their vehicle a color that's not available. The wrap protects the underlying exterior of the car as well. I There's a question about whether $7,500 to $8,000 is expensive. Is that overpriced? I think if you could probably find wraps for less money, you're probably going to get lower quality. You're not going to get a warranty from the manufacturer. Uh, my guess would be that Tesla's own wraps are going to fit better and look better than other wraps that are cheaper. I personally don't wrap my vehicles. I think the exterior of the car looks fine. I don't think that wrapping your car has any particular effect on resale value. I don't think protecting your exterior. The cars are pretty sturdy. They're pretty well made as it is. So I think Mark Plot asked the question. Sorry about this post. Mark Plot asked the question: will CATL make 4680? I believe these are prismatic, which is like a rectangular box, lithium iron phosphate cells rather than 4680 cylindrical cells. I don't know. Will they at some point make 4680 cells? Maybe. I think Tesla's plan is to make 4680s for itself. Panasonic, I know, is working on 4680s. LG Chem is working on 4680s. For those who don't know, 4680 is a 46 millimeter diameter, 880 millimeter height cylindrical cell. Have a I actually let that go. But a cylindrical battery cell, and um, that's something that Tesla came up with. I haven't heard of CATL planning to make 4680, but I don't think that's particularly important. I think Tesla's able to make vehicles with a variety of battery formations. I think CATL has a structural battery pack version of LFP. BYD has a structural battery pack version of LFP. So I don't think it's quite that important for it to be 4680, especially not for lithium iron phosphate. So anyway, these wraps, like personally, you buy a Tesla, you don't have to wrap it. They spent a lot of money on their paint shop. The paint's really good. If you want it, go for it. I think it's great. Um, I would guess that something like 10% of Tesla buyers will get the wrap, and that will increase margins by $750 $800 a car on average. Well, I mean, there's some cost of the wrap, so maybe it's not seven. It'll increase margins by a few $100, right? Which is not a big deal. It's a nice thing. I'm glad they're doing it, and it's not every Tesla service center. As far as I know, right now, there's only a few places that are doing it, but over time, maybe this is a test to see how it does. Is this a worthwhile thing for Tesla to do as a business? We'll see. Stainless steel water bottle, elonbits.com. So, couldn't a factory installed wrap on the Cybertruck be done very cheaply by Tesla, like 1K, and sold for about 4K? Um, yeah, I don't know what Tesla's cost would be. I do think there's a chance that Tesla is doing this in advance because they're planning on doing it for Cybertruck, because Cybertruck comes in one color only, stainless steel. And we've seen Tesla displaying, showing off their vehicles with wraps on them. So it might make a lot of sense for Tesla to offer wraps for Cybertruck because maybe not everybody wants stainless steel. So yeah, I think this could be a test to get ready for Cybertruck wraps, and that would also increase the resale. And probably that's not going to count against your tax credit that you go to your store and you add wrap at the service center after. That's not going to count against the price of the vehicle. So if they're going to sell the vehicle for under $80,000 and get a $7,500 tax credit, well, you can spend your $7,500 tax credit on a wrap. So that's interesting. Yeah, Mark, the Tesla Man t-shirt, I believe that the Tesla Man t-shirt is no longer available at elonbits.com. I have the Tesla Man shirt right here. I believe that somebody challenged my intellectual property rights in my design of the Tesla Man shirt. I don't know what the status of that is, so that may not be available anymore. But the Tesla Air shirt is still available, and the Tesla's the next Tesla t-shirt are available. Uh, the Wait What asks, are you going to try to develop your Podcar in Japan? That is the official reason that I'm here. I'm working on getting a visa from Japan to have a startup to start building Podcar prototypes, hiring Japanese university engineering students who build electric vehicles. They have teams that build electric vehicles as part of a competition. I'm in Nagoya, Japan, which is the place where the most universities make EVs for that competition. Most of the teams, like 80% of the teams, in the Japanese competition make gas vehicles. Nagoya has three universities in the city of Nagoya and one on the edge of the city, technically in Toyota City, um, and another university not far away, and two other universities a little further away that all have EV teams. So I think this is a great place to hire young engineering students to work part time to build EV prototypes. So standard Cybertruck will be $79,990, $7,500 federal tax credit. Yeah, I think that's a good prediction, Mark. Okay, let's move on. If I looked at the Zoox autonomous vehicle, no. So this is a question I get a lot. What about this vehicle that somebody else is doing compared to the Podcar? So there's lots of other people who are developing lots of other ideas, and so far I haven't seen anybody who's developing anything close to what I'm developing. What I'm developing is not intended for rich people. It's intended for middle class people in poor countries like India. So whatever you're thinking, what they're making is like a $5,000 to $10,000 vehicle that will end up costing 25 to 50 cents a mile, or 25 to 50 yen a kilometer for a ride. And what I'm shooting for is 5 cents a mile or 5 yen a kilometer, and a vehicle that costs $1,000 or less to build, and a vehicle that weighs less than 200 kilograms. I'm going for and a vehicle that's less comfortable and less exciting. And it's like you're an Indian businessman and you just flew into some airport and you need to go 20 miles to get to wherever you're supposed to go, and there's really not a good a lot of transportation options for you. And I can offer you a transportation option that costs you $1. Doesn't Which sounds really cheap to Americans, but that's a chunk of money to people in a country where the average income is $2,250 a year. So that's the vision. Okay. So media idiocy. Shouldn't you be aware? I'm aware of the competition, Philip. I'm way more aware of it than you are. I see these all the time. Is what you're Jim, are you teasing me? Jim Whitehead says what you were developing close to an Arcimoto. Arcimoto weighs like 500 kilograms, more than 500 kilograms, and what I want to build weighs less than 200 kilograms. Arcimoto's tall, aerodynamically inefficient, three wheels, mine is four wheels, and much lower and much more aerodynamically efficient. So, Lynn Alden fails to read Ready to be Exported. So, Lynn Alden is some media twit who talks about this woo-wah picture of the parking lot of cars waiting to be loaded onto ships to be exported to Europe. And she says, enormous sitting inventory is bullish. No, they're ready to be exported. This is the parking lot where they wait to get loaded onto a ship. And some media twit thinks that this is cars sitting on a lot in inventory. No, they're already ordered. They're being delivered to customers. The customers are far away. Giga Berlin doesn't make Model 3, so Giga Shanghai makes Model 3 and ships it to Europe. Giga Berlin doesn't make enough Model Ys for European demand, so Giga Shanghai ships Model Ys to Europe. This is fantastic. Yes, this is fantastic. So yes, high volume production is bullish for Tesla, and it's not great for other car makers. Um, Brian Fenwick says, so you're developing an electric tuk-tuk. Tuk-tuks are bigger. It's a one-person vehicle, and it's not a scooter. It's four wheels, and it's safer than a scooter. You don't have to, a scooter you have to drive, right? It's designed for autonomous driving. Wow, maybe I need to do a whole live stream just on the podcast so we can address these questions. Let's stick with Tesla news. So there's this criticism that I hear all the time about Tesla lowering their prices, and that lowers the value of Tesla's resale. So Tesla owners who paid at a high price get screwed over. And it's true. Look, I paid $135,000 for my Model X Plaid. The values dropped to around $95,000 after I put 44,000 miles on it. I lost about 30% of the value of the car, but the German EVs are losing 50% of their value in 1 year without putting 44,000 miles a year on them. The Mercedes EQS, the Porsche Taycan, the e-tron GT, this idea that Tesla is somehow screwing over buyers by doing things that lower resale value. It's normal for a car to drive off the lot and lose 30% of its value. Mine only lost 30% of value after I put 44,000 miles on it. Tesla's doing great. People are whining about nothing when they complain about Tesla. It's so dumb. The complaints are just so dumb sometimes. Hope it's better than an electric bike. It's an idea in my head right now, Jim. It's not. It's hope is we're going to build prototypes. We're going to build better prototypes. We're going to build better prototype, and then at some point we have a decent prototype and we'll be able to raise money and ask Bill Gates to chip in. Somebody sent me today, hey, what about this startup that Bill Gates invested in? Okay, I look at it. It's not what I'm doing. I believe me. I look at what everybody's doing. Okay, so next, um, Tesla's EV throne is being chipped away at by this surprising luxury brand. Mercedes-Benz in the third quarter sold 4,457 of its new electric EQE sedans and EQE SUVs. That's less than 5,000 vehicles in a quarter. That's 13 weeks. Giga Shanghai does 5,000 vehicles in about 2 days. And Tesla has 3 other factories. Like, chipping away. It's like nibbling at Tesla's ankles. It's not chipping away. Mercedes is struggling to succeed. There's 4,000 vehicles, like 4,500 vehicles in a quarter? And we're supposed to worry about that? Look, this is not a race between Tesla and other EV makers. This is a common mistake. This is a race between EV makers and gasoline cars. The mission that everybody's on the same page about is we want to replace gasoline vehicles with electric vehicles because electric vehicles are more efficient, they're better for the environment. If we're going to be dependent on fossil fuels, this puts off the day when we run out of fossil fuels. It may be that we're always going to be dependent on fossil fuels, but if we can reduce our consumption of fossil fuels, forget about climate for a second. Even if there's no climate change problem, and to downplay the climate change problem myself, even if there is no climate change problem, at some point we still run out of oil, right? There's some limited amount of oil in the ground. Now, maybe it's a lot more than we think. Maybe it's 100 years, maybe it's 300 years, but at some point we run out. So if we can use less, it lasts longer. Same thing with coal, same thing with natural gas. At some point it runs out. How will people in developing companies charge the Podcar? The Podcar is intended to be a fleet vehicle that provides rides, not a vehicle we sell to people. It will charge at probably expecting like a 6 kilowatt hour pack, so we'll have like a level 2, 19 kilowatt charger that'll charge it in basically a half hour. It would be a fleet vehicle. We sell rides for 5 cents a mile, not selling the vehicles to people. So we would have our own charging infrastructure for our fleet. How much do you estimate Tesla's cost savings per car will be for skipping the painting process compared to other Tesla models? I think it's at least it's at least $1,000, maybe $2,000 a car. I actually don't know the answer to that question. Am I going to buy a Tesla in Japan? I do not plan on buying a vehicle in Japan. I don't know if I'm staying in Japan. I may be going to India. I'm probably going to India I just got approved for a 5-year visa for India. I'm struggling to get a 1 year, a 6-month visa in Japan. So maybe they can charge the Podcar using gas generators. Ah. Regarding earnings, can Tesla offset factory downtime and price cuts with a big quarter from Lathrop mega packs? Um, I don't really worry about the quarterly numbers, so that's just not something I spend a lot of time thinking about. I'm thinking about 5, 10 years down the road, not not next quarter or this quarter. Hi Martin. When I visited Korea recently, a lot of the taxis were Hyundai Ioniq EVs and they're very comfortable. Yeah, look, okay, again, it's not Tesla versus Hyundai. It's not Tesla versus Hyundai EVs. Tesla's making EVs, Hyundai's making EVs, BYD's making EVs. The vast majority of vehicles in the world are gas. We're trying to get rid of the gas cars. I hope Hyundai makes a lot of EVs. I hope Hyundai's successful. Tesla can't make all the cars for the entire world. They probably could, but it would be nice if other vehicle makers would make other EVs that were competitive. Wait, what says oil is being naturally produced faster than we use it? I don't think that's true, but I can't say you're wrong. I just don't know. Yeah, they need the James Webb Telescope to see the competition. It's so hilarious. Look, the truth is that I think the latest Ionic EV, is actually pretty good. But it's not as good as a 2018 Model 3. The software isn't as good. They don't have a supercharging network. There's all kinds of ways there's so many ways in which Teslas are better than other EVs. But I think the Hyundai Ioniq EV is better than, let's say, a Honda Civic, right? A gasoline car. Let's go. All right. So where were we? Did that one. I don't think I did. Oh, so I wanted to talk about Lucid Motors briefly. So Lucid Motors, for those of you who don't know, is one of the Tesla killers. So Lucid stock is near record lows. Three delivery numbers delay. Lucid losing $338,000 a car. Competition's coming all over itself. The Q3 numbers delivery delay. Lucid would normally have reported their production and delivery numbers by now. Usually like the 12th or 13th of October. I don't know why they don't report on the first or second day of October, but usually they report on the 12th or 13th day of October. As far as I can tell, here in Japan, it's the 16th day of October. And in the US, it's the 15th day of October. They still haven't reported their production and delivery numbers. Lucid typically is strategic in reporting its numbers to try to have some good news when they're going to report bad news. So they have their new Sapphire $250,000 car that's almost as good as a Plaid Model S. Yes, maybe it is a little faster than a Plaid Model S, but for 3 times the price, I'm not that impressed. And we don't know what compromises they really made. We don't know how many are they going to sell, right? But I just want to stress this is Warren bragging. I first called Lucid. I think I called it vaporware. I don't think I called it a fraud in September of 2020, but I was very suspicious of Lucid's product reveal in September of 2020. And I said it was dubious, and the stock is down 48% from when I first called the company. And along the way in these upper windows here, I was calling Lucid a fraud. I think I was the earliest person to question Lucid's story, and their story is just going down in flames fast. So they have a demand problem, they have a production problem. Oh dear Lord. Raymond says, why would you build your own charging infrastructure? Okay, I want to address this question. So I'm talking about building a vehicle that will have a battery pack that is probably less than 10 kilowatt hours. The maximum you can charge a vehicle is at the peak charge rate, you're going to get 3C, which if the battery is 10 kilowatts, 10 kilowatt hours, the highest charge rate you're going to get is 30 kilowatts. So a Tesla supercharger charges at, even the slow superchargers are 72 kilowatts, but most superchargers that Tesla has built were either 150 kilowatts, and now the new ones are 250 kilowatts, and the newer ones are going to be like 350 kilowatts. There's no point in plugging in a 10 kilowatt hour battery to a 250 kilowatt supercharger. You're wasting the space on the supercharger. If you are charging at a 19 kilowatt level 2 charging port, which is much easier to install, much less expensive, easy to do with standard wiring, or easier to do with standard wiring, then even a 6 kilowatt hour pack, which is kind of roughly where I'm targeting, that's more than enough charge rate for that. So and the cost of building out these chargers is trivial compared to the cost of building superchargers. So it doesn't make sense to charge a vehicle with a small battery pack on a Tesla supercharger. I think that's a common misunderstanding a lot of people have. It it's wasting it, it would be taking space. It would, take the same length of time to charge, even though you've got the super high charge rate. So get it out of the way and let vehicles that have larger battery packs charge at superchargers. So, okay. And then the last thing, I got an Elon reply to this one. This was a comment on a YouTube video from an Elon hater. Why do so many people think that Musk is a genius when most, I think all actually of his inventions turned out to be ridiculous and frankly stupid? All of his inventions turned out to be ridiculous and frankly stupid. One thing that confuses me, why would you believe any of his promises and projections when he's constantly lying about almost everything? I just responded. SpaceX is launching 80% of global mass to orbit this year. Tesla cars are the safest and best cars on the road. Tesla Model Y is the best-selling car in the world. The Boring Company tunnel in Vegas is a roaring success. The X platform is dramatically improved on X's watch. Who are you? I don't know, Dial. I mean, I just, I see these random comments on YouTube all the time from trolls, and it's just absolutely absurd. That like his inventions are ridiculous and frankly stupid. Why is SpaceX launching 80% of global mass to orbit? You can argue about whether Tesla's cars are the safest and the best. I think they are. I don't think there's much question that they're the safest. The International Institute of Highway Safety says that all the testing shows that they're the safest. And Model Y is the best-selling car in the world. So is that ridiculous and frankly stupid? Because an awful lot of people are buying them. And you could argue about there are people who argue about the Boring Company tunnel system, but the CES, the big conventions that are held in Vegas, they love the damn thing. So, and X, I think X is clearly better. So I just wanted to address that point. I got one more. I want to talk about Tesla advertising in a second, and the infamous Barry Glack is going to appear. Martin Bonner says, "Are you anyway concerned about being in Japan since their economy will be in dire straits, given that it's so dependent on its automakers?" I don't agree with that. Japan's economy is really robust. I'll tell you what, like incomes are low in Japan. I want to hire engineers in America, I probably got to pay like $100,000 a year. You can hire college graduate engineers in Japan for about $30,000 a year. Prices here are half what they are in the U.S. My rent at this apartment is $1,000 a month. I tell Japanese people what I'm paying, and they're shocked I'm paying this much. This is in a very new building. It's like 5-year-old building. You get internet and utilities included in this rent. This is a short-term lease because I'm here as a tourist. I can't get a regular rental. Uh, I go out to dinner or routinely spend less than $10 for dinner on a nice sit-down meal. You know, so Japan is loaded with infrastructure. This is a thriving. I mean, their population's in decline, and that's a problem long term. But I think Japan is doing great economically. Um, they put chargers at parking stalls in Tokyo. I put a picture the other day on X. I was walking by. I actually saw it last night. It's in the Sakaya area of Nagoya. There's a parking lot that advertises that there's free charging. You pay like $10 for the night. You park overnight, let's say, and you plug your car in, and I don't know what the charge rate is. It says it's 200 volts. I don't know how many amps it is, but it's free charging included with your parking, and $10 for the night parking. That seems pretty cheap in Japan. And it's like, I don't know, a buck an hour or $2 an hour or something like that. Um, Hard to scale to 3 million cars per year in a bad economy. So that's coming. So let's go to the next uh, bit here. So I want to talk about Tesla advertising. Um, wait, did I cover that? I covered it. Yeah, okay. So I want to talk about Tesla advertising. There's a question that there's this idea that people have that Tesla's going to spend $1 million in advertising and it's going to generate $100 million in revenue. And that's like totally ignoring how advertising works. What you typically hope for when you're advertising is that you'll generate maybe $5 in revenue for every dollar you spend in advertising. Some people may do better than that, but I think the average is actually significantly worse than that. So when you're advertising a very high margin product, like Apple does a lot of advertising, but Apple's margins are insanely high, right? If you got software margins, then advertising might make sense. When you have margins that are like 20%, if you spend an extra dollar on advertising, right, and you generate $5 in revenue and your margins on what you're selling are 20%, then you just spent your margin and you didn't make any more money. That's if you make $5 in revenue for every dollar of ad spend. What if you only make $3 in additional revenue for $1 of ad spend? That means you actually lost money on the advertising. This is something that I think people don't get. And there's just sort of this question: do you think that they're going to sell more cars because they're advertising, or do you think they're going to sell cars at higher prices because they're advertising? So, as far as I can tell, Tesla is production constrained. As they produce more vehicles, they sell all the vehicles that they produce. So the question really is that going to increase the price enough to offset this? And I don't see it. Did I get the Star of David Monroe? Yeah, that's actually not a Star of David. I know it looks like a Star of David up here. This is actually from the Plaid Powertrain. A friend of mine, Brian Smith, bought this from Monroe, the Monroe. They had like an auction or something like that to buy pieces of the Plaid Powertrain, and that was a gift from my friend Brian Smith. Thank you, Brian. Oh dear Lord, John Haffenecker, why is Tesla using diesel generators to charge their superchargers at the Coalinga site? So I don't know the full story there, but if the one I saw that was like that, there were like, I don't know, 96 superchargers, which would be using about 10 megawatts of power. It may be a short-term solution to they're waiting for the utility to get enough power there. I don't know if those diesel generators are for the superchargers or for something else, but it's very unlikely that the diesel generators are generating 10 megawatts. Go look up how much it costs to get a 2 megawatt diesel generator and ask yourself if you think that's what's really going on. That's the kind of dumb stuff you see. Um, Model Y is the best-selling car with zero advertising. Absolutely. Yeah, and look, Tesla posts something on the X platform, and they get like 16 million views. They're doing okay. Oh, Mark Plot, that was actually the Haneda Airport terminal. There's somebody posted a video that Tesla has some sort of ad running in the airport terminal in Tokyo. I believe it's the Haneda Airport, which is the smaller airport, rather than the Narita Airport, which is the bigger airport. I saw that on the video. I haven't been to Haneda Airport. I don't think I'm going to Haneda Airport anytime soon, so I'm not likely to see this thing. But I do think that there may be a place for Tesla to advertise somewhere. I'm not saying advertising is always stupid, but you have to be able to say that it's going to generate revenue in a meaningful way. Tesla has a problem in Japan. I did an interview with Steve Ikeda where we talked about this. Tesla sells 500 cars a month in Japan. They sell 50,000 cars a month in China. If Tesla's going to achieve 20 million, I think the big goal for Tesla is to achieve 20 million vehicles a year globally and achieve other goals, of course. Japan is the third or fourth largest car market in the world, third by value, fourth by units. India now sells more units, but much lower value, much lower revenue. Tesla needs to sell cars in Japan. They need to sell a higher volume in Japan, and I think they're taking steps, and I think it's hard. I think the Japanese market the car market is built on relationships with dealers, and Tesla doesn't use the dealer model, so I think that's challenging. Am I MAGA? No, I'm not a MAGA. I've never been a Trump fan, and I'm not. I'm Make America Great Again. I think America has always been great and always will be great. I think that both Republicans and Democrats are making America less great by spending too much money. And reckless spending, reckless borrowing, reckless money printing, and that is a bipartisan thing. Yeah, Brian Keck, I don't know if it'll still be in Haneda then. Any guesses when the Cybertruck delivery event will be? No, I have no guesses on that. So anyway, I wanted to make this point. A good return on ad spending would be $5 in revenue for every dollar in ads. If Tesla has 20% gross auto margin, the additional revenue would be zero margin. Now you can play games with that and you can say, well, if they're selling the same number of cars, but they're increasing the price of the cars by their advertising, then there's no additional cost to making the cars. The additional cost is just the ads. But it's tricky. It's really not so simple as you just, well, we're gonna spend $1 million on ads and we're gonna generate $1 billion in additional revenue. That's like pie in the sky thinking. You don't know what's gonna work. I've purchased advertising. I spent I think my peak was at least $4,000 a month, and it may have been when I was spending money on other ads. I've advertised on radio, I've advertised in print, I've advertised on TV, I've done a lot of Google search advertising and a lot of other Google advertising and social media advertising. It's hard to do advertising well. And when you ask people, well, how are they going to do these ads? How is this going to work? The answer you typically get is, well, they'll hire an ad agency. Oh, because Tesla's known for outsourcing? Wait, what company are we talking about here? Tesla's not going to outsource its advertising. They're going to do it in-house. if they're going to advertise. Um, there's no way to save America without war, depression, or both, in my opinion. Yeah, I do think there's hope to save the American economy. I don't think it's likely if we stop, if we brought our troops home from overseas, and I have an idea of how we could solve the Social Security and Medicare problem, which is basically let people opt out and they would pay half of what they pay in now, and you basically sell off federal land and borrow money to finance the gap that's going to occur. I think you could actually bring America back to a vibrant, growing economy, and have a meaningful future. And it may be that AI just ends up changing the game for economic growth, and AI just spurs massive economic growth, and that saves America as well. That's possible. Has 48 volt tech been confirmed on Cybertruck? I'm pretty sure Tesla said that Cybertruck would be all 48 volt low voltage architecture. Yes. Elon is definitely watching this stream. I don't think Elon is watching this stream. No, I don't think so. Why is Japan electricity still primarily generated from imported fossil fuel? Why isn't solar more popular here? Solar is more popular in Japan than it is in America. I see it all over the place. Um, I don't think Japan has a lot of good options. They were nuclear and they turned off a lot of their nuclear, so they have to use imported fossil fuel. But I do see a lot of solar, and there are a lot of tax benefits in Japan for doing solar. I think Tokyo has a lot of benefits. But the real answer would be to find the unpopulated areas and cover them with solar panels. And I think they're making progress towards it. Um, Elon was at a Buc-ee's near Bastrop and found sandwich boards suggesting passersby scan a QR to reserve a test drive on site. Now that's targeted advertising. Interesting. EV business is so new and growing fast, so it's not a normal situation. Tesla can greatly expand despite the economy. As for housing, the problem is liberal planning board NIMBYs. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things that are holding back the U.S. economy, and the European economy, and the Canadian economy, and China. China doesn't have a lot of those limitations. So Phil says, why do people listen to Gary Black when retail investors like me have more shares than his fund? So that brings me. We're almost there. Um, with all the people talking about advertising, Volkswagen AG's new orders for its electric vehicles failed to meet the company's targets in the third quarter. Our order intake is below our ambitious targets due to the lower than expected overall market trend. But Volkswagen advertises. I don't know. I thought this advertising thing was supposed to work. And the competition is coming. Look, the competition is coming and they're buying advertising. And yet they're still not growing their sales in a meaningful way. What's the story here? So, and Barry Black, aka Gary Black, posted, it's time for Tesla to start advertising. He posted an article from CNBC where CNBS interviewed Gary Black because Gary Black is, by most measures, Gary Black qualifies as a big supporter of electric vehicle giant Tesla. The Chicago fund manager has had Tesla as his number one or number two holding since he opened his fund in 2021. So, just to be clear, people ask me how much Tesla stock I own. I own more than Gary's fund owns. Okay. And I actually don't feel like I own a lot. I have a lot of friends who have like 5, 10 times or more the stock that I have. 20, one guy I can think of has 20 times as much stock. Another guy I think has 100 times as much stock as I do. Um, Gary is not a big Tesla shareholder by the standards of Tesla shareholders. Is he a big supporter? I mean, he's generally sort of kind of positive about Tesla. He doesn't really understand the company. But having a big mouth and getting on TV doesn't make Gary a big supporter by any sensible measure. And I got this reply when I criticized Gary. Warren, you're a troll. Gary does a good job informing investors about how Wall Street operates and gives the good, bad, and ugly as well. You're probably still in the 20 million group by 2030. 20 million by 2030 group. So first of all, the idea that Wall Street operates in one way, that there's this uniform group of guys in suits who all went to Harvard and Yale and Penn and Wharton and Columbia, and they all think the same way. That's a pretty dim way of looking at Wall Street. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Wall Street. I think Wall Street gets things wrong, but and there's a lot of different ways that Wall Street, different thinkers on Wall Street. The idea that Gary somehow like taps into the way Wall Street thinks because he says, "Well, I talk to portfolio managers and yeah, okay." Gary talks to portfolio managers. How many can he possibly know? How many of them say, "Sure, Gary, whatever"? How many of them take him seriously? We have no idea. We have no idea how much Gary knows about Wall Street. We know that Gary was active on Wall Street like 10, 20 years ago. We don't know what he knows about Wall Street today. Just know he talks big. And like I'm not saying he's a bad person. I just think he's full of himself, and I don't know why people buy this crap. And you're probably still in the 20 million by 2030 group. Hell yeah. Yeah, I think the next generation, first of all, I think the economy is likely to turn around at some point. We can hope that the economy turns around, that the Federal Reserve reduces interest rates, it stimulates demand, probably just to like give Biden a prayer in the election coming up in 2024, that they lower interest rates and that juices the economy and the economy takes off. But really, what's going to drive it is the next generation vehicle. The next generation vehicle is going to be produced in super high volume. And I think that Tesla's going to have to make a smaller vehicle than the next generation vehicle. After that, we'll see. Let's be honest, Tesla knows more about their plans than I do. They know more about the global Earth car market than I do. I'm probably wrong and they're probably right, but I think that the next generation vehicle can't be the last one. There has to be another smaller vehicle. There'll be a van, so on and so forth. But yeah, I think Tesla will hit 20 million by 2030. And if it's only 2031, I'll get over it. I'm big on that. So here's a question though. Tesla runs its first ad on Monday. This is my poll question. What will Gary Black say on Tuesday? Finally, they're advertising. Or, no, not like that. That's not what I meant. Or I talked to portfolio managers, and you can see that Gary Black appreciating that Tesla doing advertising is not a large proportion of the people choosing. People who follow Gary Black know that whatever Tesla does, he's going to say they're doing it wrong. This is the smarter than Elon club. There's this club of people who are smarter than Elon. I don't know how to get in the club because I don't think I'm smarter than Elon. I think I have some opinions that this might be different or this is some things you have to do. I recognize that when I say, this is what I think is going on or this is what I think needs to happen, the Tesla team probably knows better than I do. I'm going to offer my opinion. I'm going to call it the way I see it. But the idea that I'm like somehow going to go on CNBC and say, this is what Elon's doing wrong, nonsense. Do I see a stock split anytime soon? Don't care about stock splits. Is Troy Test like a weird guy? I don't know Troy personally. I think he gets some things wrong. I think he's usually pretty good at predicting Tesla's deliveries and production for a quarter. Not pretty good. I think he's like the best. Victor Block says I developed hundreds of lots. I stopped a few years ago. I'm in New York, possibly the worst state except California. Yeah, there's all kinds of local zoning. Like I have this idea for a solar home project that I want to build, but zoning in Florida makes it nearly impossible. And then the utilities restrict how much solar you can put on your roof. So if I'm going to do the solar, if the Japan thing doesn't work out and the rest of the things don't work out, then because I might go to India and try the Podcar in India. And my next plan is to go to Texas and build solar homes because Texas doesn't generally have zoning. Tesla already designed a $5,000 car. I haven't seen it. You think America's economy will be significantly below China's in years to come? Elon reckons China may be as much as 3 times larger. I think China's economy is already bigger than America's. There's different ways of measuring the size of an economy. My favorite example is, as I understand it, demand for semis, the equivalent to Tesla semi in China, is the number of semis bought each year new in China is 4 times the number of semis bought in Canada and and the United States combined. That sounds like a bigger economy to me. They're certainly manufacturing more. I mean, we produce more social media than China. Let's go with that. Explaining short-term price movement is a fool's errand. Gary does this every day. Yeah, you can't explain short-term price movement. The beginning of the end of VinFast. Yeah, I haven't really paid attention to VinFast. My impression is that VinFast, which is a Vietnamese EV maker, that their cars just ended up not being nearly as good as people thought they would be. Is Florida a safe state for minorities to live? Why wouldn't it be? Florida's filled with minorities. Florida's a great state to live in. Yeah, I'm a little confused by that question. Why would Florida be done? I mean, first of all, Florida's probably majority Latino. Are Latinos minority? If they become a majority, are they minority? I don't know. I have black friends in Florida. I have Latino friends in Florida. I have Asian friends in Florida. I don't know. I think Florida's a great place. There's dangerous places in any state. Maybe not New Hampshire. I think New Hampshire has no. New Hampshire and Vermont don't have dangerous places. Maine's pretty safe, but Florida's a great state. Yeah, zoning is a big issue that we could talk about. You know, if you want to transition to solar, it's zoning and it's actually utilities. So zoning makes it hard to develop land in a way that would produce a lot of solar. Like if you want to build a solar farm, where can you build a solar farm? Like maybe the zoning doesn't allow a solar farm in that place, right? If you want to build a home with a solar roof, like my solar farm apartments idea, you can't build density of housing is restricted by zoning, and then the size of the home is restricted by zoning, and there's all these rules, and like finding a lot that's consistent with what you want to do for your building your home. There's only a certain number of those available. Zoning laws were built to pump up property prices and protect in particular large landowners, apartment home builders, because they don't want competition from somebody else building apartment buildings that would lower rents. And rents are really high in the U.S. That's one of the shocking things to me is how cheap rent is in Japan. Japan is a crowded country, right? But rents here are way lower than America. I mean, I'm talking about in not crowded parts of the U.S. I was living in Cape Canaveral in the Melbourne, Florida area, Rockledge. It's hard to find a place for less than 1,500 a month in the U.S. And I found a place that was like 1,200 a month in like a bad part of Satellite Beach, if there's such a thing as a bad part of Satellite Beach. And I walked into the place and that was the kind of place you'd kill yourself in. It was terrible. It was awful. $1,500 a month is like a minimum for a decent apartment. In America, I'm paying 1,000 a month for this, and that's because it's a short-term deal. And like Japanese people are like, "You're paying 1,000 a month for that? You're paying 600 a month for that?" They can't believe it. Wow, you must be rich. And by Japanese standards, I am. Um, yeah. Mr. Senna John says Tesla can sell 1 million cyber quads. People don't understand how big the quad segment is. I don't think the quad segment is that big. Um, what? How many ATVs are sold here? I have no idea. How much do they cost? How much do you think a cyber quad is going to cost? Yes, Jim Whitehead, exactly. You'll see large developments. There's a lot of homes built in South Florida, and they will rezone land for large developers like GL Homes. And strangely, somebody who works for the legislature, for the county legislature, is suddenly a consultant, retired and consultant working for GL Homes. Go figure that out. There's definitely corruption. There's definitely bribery. There's definitely all kinds of things going on there. But the larger developers, they can make deals. They can buy some land somewhere else and say, "We'll commit this land as a reserve for later," and then of course they'll build on that land later when they need to. Yeah, if you build more housing, pricing goes down. But it's housing. It's a shocking thing to me. Just a really simple example. I buy Pellegrino bottled water. It's like Perrier. Perrier, Pellegrino are my two favorite bottled waters. And in America, it's about $20 for a 24 pack. At Sam's Club, at like a discount wholesale club, like $20 for 24 bottles. It's almost $1 a bottle. I ordered Pellegrino from Amazon Japan. It was delivered to my building. It's Amazon Prime, right? But it's delivered to my building for under $10. It's like less than half the price of having to drive to a discount store that you have to pay a membership to get to shop there. The price in Japan just for Amazon Prime to deliver to my home was less than it. And it's Italian water. It's bottled in Italy. They got to ship it on ships. The trip from Italy to Japan is a lot farther than the trip from Italy to Florida. Right? You got to go through a canal. It's either the Suez Canal or the Panama Canal to get the water. I think they go through the Suez Canal to get from Italy to, you got to pay canal fee. How on earth is it less expensive to buy Perrier in Japan or Pellegrino or Perrier in Japan than it is to, and Perrier's from France, right? How could it possibly be less expensive to buy it here than in the US? There's something really messed up with pricing in the US. Americans are getting screwed. 14.4 says, what happened in my red county is the county board has been blocking new developments where an attempt was made to set aside over half for rental companies. Yeah, it's look, the when you talk about local governments, one of the biggest influence on local governments is local homeowners and especially large local property owners. And the people who own large residential buildings, large apartment buildings, whatever, don't want new apartments built because if new apartments are built, that's going to compete with their apartments, unless they're the ones building them. So they don't want other people coming in and building housing to compete with their housing. And they have a lot of influence over local officials because they're making campaign contributions. Are you buying off politicians? You're probably not. Yeah, the Tesla and Air t-shirts at elonbits.com. Thank you. The stainless steel water bottles at elonbits.com. As far as I know, the Tesla man t-shirt is no longer available. I appealed. I don't know what happened with the appeal. Tesla's the next Tesla t-shirt. Yeah, there's all kinds of special interests that have all kinds of ways of controlling things. Jim Whitehead says longshoremen unions control most of the ports in the USA. I don't know. I mean, like, don't didn't have to pay the union guys to import the bottle. I don't know what happens. I don't know what the full story is. It just doesn't make sense to me that things are so expensive in America. Um, yeah, was there a tax? Yeah, probably there probably was a tax on it too. They were blocking new subdivisions where half the homes were set aside. Have I tried any live food yet? No. There I will say like about Japan. Let me give a quick update. So let's see. First of all, I eat a wide variety of food in Japan. Everything's less expensive here. Pretty much everything. I'm trying to think. Hummus. Hummus is hard to find here, and hummus can be more expensive here. That's all I got. Hummus. I guess Japanese people aren't into hummus, so it's hard to find it. Wait, am I the Florida man you've been reading about in the paper? I don't think so. Um, so I'll go out to dinner, and I'll pay. There's places advertising draft beer for 190 yen, which is about a buck and a quarter, right? A buck and a quarter, like advertised that you get. It's a small beer, right? It's not like a tall one, but still a buck and a quarter for a beer. Um, and routinely eat dinner for less than $10, sometimes less than $5. I've had like, and I'm talking about in a sit down restaurant, like better quality than McDonald's for less than $5 for lunch. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that Japan is great in terms of pricing. So my situation is that I'm trying to get a visa to start up the Podcar company in Japan, and it feels like I don't know whether I'm getting the visa or not. I've applied for the visa, and then the application was not rejected, but like, hey, we need clarification on these 7 questions. I mean, I have a consultant helping me prepare this stuff, and I've had a lot of back and forth with the consultant to try to submit the proper information to get a yes or no from Aichi Prefecture, which is going to rule on it first. And I'm doing my best to answer their questions. I think I have a straightforward business plan, which is for the next 2 years, I'm going to spend my own money and hire university engineering students to build prototypes. And if at some point we actually build a good prototype and we think it's good, then we take that prototype and we either try to raise money for investors if all goes well and Tesla stock, let's say, triples before we have our last, before we're ready to go, and maybe I just keep funding and I just hire full-time engineers. But, raise a couple $1 million in funds from American investors or Japanese investors or whatever, and then hire full-time engineers and do more intensive work on getting to pre-production prototypes to the point where we think we can actually manufacture in volume, and then manufacture in volume. And while all along the way, I'm going to India, I'm going to Egypt, I'm going to some other countries to try to identify the first country where we would run a fleet of pod cars. And we're talking to Tesla. We're meeting with Tesla. We're meeting with other self-driving companies as well. I want to work with Tesla if possible to see if we can license FSD for our pod car, put it in a robotaxi network when Tesla has a robotaxi network ready, or when there's some other robotaxi network ready. And the idea being that our cost of operating our vehicle, all in amortization of the vehicle, everything, all the costs together, are going to be dramatically lower than any other vehicle. So if you can sell rides for $1 a mile, we can sell rides for $1 a mile. We make more profit than you do. If the price of rides drops all the way to 5 cents a mile, as far as I've seen, no other proposed vehicle out there would be able to make a profit at 5 cents a mile or 5 yen a kilometer. Um, and our vehicle would be able to make a profit at 5 yen a kilometer, 5 cents a mile. That's the vision. The cost to rent a container ship to ship water to Japan on half-empty ships is probably way cheaper than to ship to the US. I don't know why they would be half-empty ships. Why would they be half-empty ships? Japan is an economy that imports a lot of stuff. No, but it's not. So it's just like milk is cheaper in Japan. Like milk is cheaper in Japan. Chicken breast is cheaper in Japan. Like they have weird preferences for meat. It's just like everything's cheaper. It doesn't. I'm not saying it makes sense, but they're really odd. Like potato chips. They don't have large bags of like potato chips, but their small bags of potato chips are like less than $1, maybe 50 cents or something like. I saw Coca-Cola is cheaper in Japan. Come on, Coca-Cola is cheaper in Japan. They make it here, so yeah. So I'm waiting for approval for my visa, and because it's taken so long, I'm no longer confident I will get the visa before I have to leave the country. I can only stay in the country for 90 days. My 90 days is up somewhere around November 23rd. So my current plan is November 23rd. I'm flying to Singapore. Spent a few days in Singapore. There's a YouTuber named Darren Young. If you don't follow him, please check out Darren Young. He's the Singapore Tesla YouTuber. Visit with him. Spend a few days in Singapore. Visit the city Johor Bahru in Malaysia, which sounds Johor Bahru sounds like it should be a city in a Star Wars. I guess Kuala Lumpur also sounds like it could be a Star Wars city name. But visit Malaysia briefly, and then I'm going to fly to India, and I got a 5-year visa, tourist visa for India, and I'm going to go to somewhere in India and think about hiring engineers in India. Now, key distinction: Japanese university students often work part time. Like 80-90% of Japanese students work part time. So the idea in Japan was to hire Japanese university engineering students. In India, apparently students do not work part time. Their parents are paying for them to go to college, and they expect them to be studying. So full time engineers in Japan sorry, full time hiring full time engineers in India. I think I can hire full time engineers for 5 or 10 grand a year. And I think the way I have in mind to do it, like 5 grand a year. If they're software engineers and they're working for like American companies outsourcing stuff, then they make more than that. But mechanical engineers aren't typically, if I can find mechanical engineers who want good work, get decent money, work in a nice place, I think I can make it happen. Yes, Coke tastes the same. Weird thing, I went to a Mexican restaurant last night, Macho Chicken, it's called, and they didn't have Mexican Coke. How can you not have Mexican Coke in a Mexican restaurant? Um, Coke in Japan is draft style. No, no, they sell bottles and cans of Coke in Japan. Very black. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up now. I'm going to be doing another video talking about some geopolitical issue that a lot of people are talking about that I can't talk about on YouTube because YouTube is a censorship platform. So it'll be on the Daily Lie, warrenredlick.locals.com, link in the top of the chat. We'll be talking about that. They have 100 yen shops, County Bradley. They have 100 yen shops, which is like 70 cents or six. I think that's like 65 cents. Yeah, I paid 1,500 yen for lunch yesterday, and that I came out on my credit card as $10 and a penny. Have I ever shared the design of my pod car? I don't think so. But it's, 1.2 meters wide, 1 meter tall, 1.8 meters long, under 200 kilograms. The specific engineering, that's something I'm still going to work out with the students. I have an engineering design, but I think I've changed my mind on how I want to do it. I'm thinking structural floor plan. Think about it. Structural floor plan. Structural floor plan. Sounds crazy, but I'm thinking it's serious. Okay, so why would you want Mexican Coke when American Coke is odd one and Japanese probably use cane sugar? I don't know. I don't know what they use in Japan. All right. So anyway, warrenredlick.locals.com. We'll be doing a live stream there. Please check out the t-shirts, stainless steel water bottle at elonbits.com. Thank you to the moderators, Mark Potochnik, Mark Plott, Jim Whitehead for moderating the chat. And please check out my other videos. Please support me here as a YouTube channel member, on X, Twitter. Follow me on Twitter, WR4NYGov. Support me on that platform. Support me on the locals platform we're about to go to, or support me on Patreon. Any support is appreciated. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching.